find myself in a pretty unique situation, and I'm wondering if anyone else has gone through something similar. It's important to note that I'm not the one who's hurting here. The real weight of my past mistakes falls on my husband, kids, and parents, and for that, I am truly sorry. To be clear, I'll be upfront about this. 19 months ago, I was caught in an affair with a married neighbor who has 3 kids. I'm 32, my husband is 39, and the neighbor, let's call him Max for privacy, was 27 at the time. Looking back, I can see just how terrible that mistake was. The affair started over 2 years ago, and while it lasted almost 5 months before it came to light, I was physically with Max only 4 times. I know that sounds hard to believe, but I promise it's the truth. Now, let me tell you, I don't even fully believe it myself. I'm sure you have a lot of questions about my marriage. Whether we were having problems, if I didn't love my husband, or if I was unhappy. The answer to all of that is a resounding no. I was genuinely content in my marriage. I loved my husband and our 2 boys, who are 9 and 11, more than anything. Ethan met all my emotional, mental, and physical needs. He was everything I had ever hoped for and more. As for my attraction to Max, it was misplaced. It came from a deeper, almost primal place within me, one that reminded me of my first romantic experience when I was 18. It was a wild kind of attraction, the same intensity one felt back then. It felt almost like an instinct, as if a wild animal inside me had taken over. In high school, I had brief relationships with 4 boys, but they were nothing serious, just quick kisses at the end of the night. To me, they were more like friends since we all grew up together. But one day, I went to a barbecue at a friend's house where I met Oliver. He was my friend's cousin, and from the moment I laid eyes on him, I was completely captivated. He was 20 and I was 18. There was an undeniable chemistry between us, something magnetic that I couldn't explain. We started talking, and when he had to leave for work, we exchanged numbers. The next evening, we met for ice cream, then took a walk, talking for hours. We couldn't get enough of each other, and before I knew it, we were kissing. He invited me back to his apartment, and that's where I had my first real experience. There was something about Oliver that stirred something in me, a desire to give him everything. Even now, I can't put it into words. It just felt like a deep, subconscious pull I couldn't resist. Despite the physical connection, Oliver and I were total opposites. We didn't have anything in common beyond that attraction. 11 months later, after the passion faded, I ended things with him. A year later, I met Ethan, and from the start, I knew he was the one. He ticked every box, and I was sure he was the right person for me. We got married a year later, and for 13 wonderful years, our marriage was a source of joy. That is, until I destroyed it. We were blessed with 2 amazing boys, who were the spitting image of their dad, both in looks and personality. I'm sharing all of this to give you some context for what happened with Max. Max and his wife, Rachel, moved into our neighborhood and were the youngest couple there. My husband and I are the second youngest, and most of the other neighbors are in their 60s. Everyone gave Max and Rachel a warm welcome, and they were invited to a neighborhood picnic. That's where Max and I first noticed each other, just like I had with Oliver all those years ago at that barbecue. A little later, I ran into Max at the car dealership where he worked in finance. We were looking for a new SUV, and when Ethan realized Max worked there, they started chatting. The following week, we went back to check out cars, and Max made sure we got a great deal and helped with the financing process. We exchanged a few looks, but Ethan didn't notice. A few days later, I had to return the vehicle to have mud flaps installed, and that's when Max and I had our first inappropriate encounter. He greeted me in the lounge, then again in his office where he mentioned some additional financing details. We talked for a while, and that's when he confessed he wanted to speak with me alone about his feelings. I admitted I felt something too, but I knew it was wrong. Max knew it was wrong as well, but he didn't care. He wanted me. The following morning, after our kids had gone to school and our spouses had left for work, Max and I had our first intimate encounter at his house. Just to give you some background, my husband has a stable job, and Rachel works as a licensed practical nurse. Over the course of the 5 months, Max and I only had physical relations 4 times. There wasn't any emotional connection. Ethan was the man I loved, and Max loved Rachel. What Max and I shared was strictly physical, and to be honest, it wasn't even close to what I had with Ethan. But it was forbidden, and that made it thrilling and dangerous. Looking back, I realized that after being a stay-at-home mom for 11 years, I was starved for attention from a younger, attractive man. I thought I could have this secret fling and still keep my loving marriage intact. Of course, that illusion shattered one Thursday morning 19 months ago, when Max and I were caught in bed at his house by Rachel's mother. She walked in on us while we were fully engaged and immediately began screaming obscenities. She slapped and scratched Max, leaving a large gash from her nails. Then, she hit me square on the jaw and yanked out handfuls of my hair before I could gather myself and escape. When I got home, I was completely in shock. The reality of what I had done started to sink in, and I realized my once perfect marriage with Ethan might never be the same again. I sat in silence for hours, staring at the walls, unsure how to tell my husband. Eventually, I called him and left an urgent message saying I needed to talk, but he didn't respond. I sent a text, but still got no reply. A few minutes later, Rachel and her mother showed up at our house, pounding on the door and screaming through the bay window for me to answer. I was terrified and deeply embarrassed, so I didn't respond. Fortunately, the boys were at school by then. After they left, I collapsed on the couch, crying. I dozed off briefly, but was woken by the sound of a car door slamming in the driveway. I peeked outside and saw Ethan. I rushed to freshen up before going to greet him, but when he opened the door, he didn't come inside. Instead, I saw him walking down the street toward Max and Rachel's house. He was there for nearly 3 hours before coming home. When he walked in, I tried to hug him, but he pulled away. I started apologizing, but he told me my apology wasn't enough. He said he wanted me to leave. I broke down, crying and begging him to let me stay, but he insisted. He then called my mom, explained everything, and asked her to come pick me up. She came over, apologized to Max, helped me pack a bag, and took me to her house. As I left, I asked Ethan what he would tell the kids, and he said he'd handle it. I left feeling utterly broken and ashamed. That night, I called Ethan, and to my surprise, he picked up. He just said hello, and then went silent. I introduced myself, apologized again, and promised I would never do something like this again. I told him I would spend the rest of my life making it up to him. Ethan stayed silent for a long time and then asked if I had anything else to say. I said no and asked him how he was feeling. He told me he knew exactly how he felt, and I broke down in tears. Then he told me he wanted me to stay at my parents' house for a couple of weeks before coming back home. I reluctantly agreed but asked when I would get to see him and the boys. He said he didn't want to see me right now, but we could have a brief call every evening at 9 o'clock. The first call was awkward. I said, "I love you," and he just hung up without replying. The next night, the call went the same way. I apologized, and Ethan remained silent until I stopped talking. Then he hit me with a bombshell. He wanted a divorce. Hearing those words crushed me, and I begged him for another chance. He refused, saying he'd lose half of everything he'd worked for. Then, unexpectedly, he said he would give me everything he owned if I would just disappear and leave him and the boys alone. I broke down again, insisting he didn't mean that, but he was adamant. He really meant it. We ended the call, and I spent the rest of the night crying. After that, I started to think about how I could make him stay. I came up with a plan. I would offer him a postnuptial agreement so generous he couldn't possibly refuse it. All I wanted was a second chance to prove my love, no matter the cost. The next week, while Ethan was meeting with his divorce attorney, I met with my own lawyer, not to prepare for a divorce, but to draft a postnuptial agreement that I could present to Ethan before the divorce papers came. I visited 4 different attorneys before I found one who specialized in postnuptial agreements and was willing to create one that heavily favored Ethan. He would receive nearly all the benefits in exchange for staying married to me for a period of time, giving me a chance to win back his love. Unfortunately, Ethan's lawyer managed to complete the divorce papers in just 11 days, and I was served at my parents' house 2 days later. I, in turn, had Ethan served with the proposed postnuptial agreement. That evening, after he had a chance to read the proposal, we talked. Ethan seemed genuinely surprised by what I had offered, and for the first time in weeks, I could sense the caring man I once knew, rather than the cold, robotic figure who had seemed so distant during the past 2 weeks. The agreement was a complete win for Ethan and gave me a real opportunity to prove I'm worth keeping. While I won't go into all the details of the postnuptial, I can share that it allows Ethan to retain almost all of our marital assets, as long as we stay married and live together for at least 30 more months. If I am unfaithful again and we divorce, I would lose any claims on our marital assets, receive nothing, and forfeit any alimony or child support. The agreement also stipulates that I must get a full-time job within 6 months and contribute to the household expenses. Additionally, Ethan has the option to date other women if he chooses, though I know he would never do that. It's just not in him. I want him to know I love him enough to give him this option if he ever needs it. To my surprise, Ethan agreed to the offer but with one additional stipulation. He wanted a clause added that would state there's no requirement for us to sleep together or live together as a married couple for the remainder of our marriage. This clause saddened me and I hesitated before agreeing to it, but in the end, I decided that with time, I could win back his trust, respect, and passion. Now, 17.5 months into what I call our second marriage, things haven't turned out as I had hoped. Our relationship now feels more like 2 housemates raising children together than a married couple. Don't get me wrong. I'm incredibly grateful for the second chance I've been given, but what we have now doesn't qualify as a marriage. It's more like we're 2 divorced people living under the same roof. Since the affair, Ethan has shown me no affection whatsoever. Not even a kiss or a hug. He won't let me get close enough to show any kind of affection, though occasionally, if I can sneak in a quick hug or kiss, he'll block me. I can tell he doesn't like it, so I try not to do it often. Despite everything, Ethan still insists on me getting monthly at-home STD tests. Since the affair, he refuses to go out in public with me, even for family events. When the boys have their games, we take turns attending. When it's my turn, Ethan shows up but never sits with me. He usually stands off to the side with other fathers and acts like I'm not there. The only times we go out together are when we go out of town or on vacation, which we do frequently. On these trips, Ethan always books adjoining rooms with 2 queen beds. The boys stay in one room and we stay in the other in separate beds. I look forward to every trip, as it's the only time I feel like I'm close to him. I've almost been able to break through to him during these trips. I've suggested that we move to start fresh, but Ethan has said he would only consider moving if he gets a job promotion that requires relocation. Otherwise, he plans to stay until the boys finish high school. The boys don't want to move either, as all their friends live nearby, as do Ethan's. Since the affair, I've lost all my friendships in the neighborhood. Max and Rachel divorced 8 months after everything came to light, but Rachel and her kids still live just down the street. The other women I was once close to in the neighborhood have cut me off, blaming me for breaking up a family. Now, my home feels more like a prison, and I rarely leave. I stay either inside or in the backyard, tending to my gardens. The boys are often out with their friends, including Max and Rachel's kids, but thankfully their world hasn't changed much. Ethan follows a similar routine. He spends time with the neighborhood men, smoking cigars and sipping bourbon in the evenings, either at our house or theirs. After work, he hits the gym and then comes home, often avoiding the dinner I make. On weekends, he grills but only eats what he cooks, not any of my dishes. Dinners with the boys have become a special bonding time. We eat around 4 o'clock right after school, setting the table, helping with food prep, and cleaning up together. It's a great way to bond, and it's even extended to the garden, where we've created an awesome space. In summary, some things in my life are going well, while others are truly heartbreaking. I'm at a crossroads, uncertain if this marriage is worth continuing in its current form, or if it would be better to let Ethan go now and provide him with financial benefits. Deep down, I know he's not happy and that he no longer sees me as his wife or lover, only as a co-parent. I love him deeply and will carry the weight of what I did for the rest of my life. I want to go back to the loving relationship we once shared, but I'm not sure he'll ever allow that. Please let me know what you think I should do. Any advice on how to regain my husband's love and trust after betraying him so openly would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Sophie. Update. Last month, I decided to take the advice I was given and temporarily move out of the house to give our marriage some breathing room. I rented a furnished apartment nearby, and I've been living there ever since. While I miss being with my husband and boys, and I miss my gardens, I found relief in being away from the neighborhood. There are just too many bad memories and negative associations there, and I know I'm the one to blame for them. I'm not making excuses for my actions. When I told Ethan about my decision, he seemed surprised and a bit saddened, asking a lot of questions. His reaction showed me a lot. It was clear that he still loves me. I could see it in his eyes. I've been picking up the boys after school, and they come over to my apartment for dinner, staying a few nights each week. Ethan and I have been flexible about it, allowing the kids to go back and forth between our homes. The biggest challenge now is that, since I'm living apart from him, I don't see him very often, and it's difficult to have meaningful conversations. So, I find myself calling him a lot, asking silly questions just to keep in touch. We've had several long conversations recently, which tells me that he still has feelings for me. I know I love him. That's all for now. Thanks and take care. Update. Life truly is a roller coaster, full of ups and downs. After 2 years of what I thought was a second chance, Ethan decided that it's best for us to get a divorce. Ethan mentioned that he still loves me and might want to rekindle a romantic relationship in the future, but he believes it's too difficult to do while we're still married. He explained that, psychologically, he feels disrespected and betrayed while we're married, but he thinks he could let go of those feelings after the divorce. Ethan even suggested that we celebrate our divorce once it's final, perhaps spending the night together. While this might sound strange to some, I'm willing to go along with it if it means keeping Ethan in my life as a partner, lover, and friend. Ethan made it clear, however, that even if we reconnect, we won't remarry. He believes that a binding contract is unnecessary if we truly love each other. I agree with him, but I do wish there was another way to move forward without the divorce. Regarding the divorce, I've decided to let Ethan keep 3/4 of our marital assets, despite his not meeting the post-nup stipulations. I won't ask for alimony or child support. Some may criticize me for being generous, but I feel that he earned the money, and had I remained faithful, he would have given it all to me. I'm at peace with this decision and can live comfortably for the next 8 years or more without having to work. Right now, I am working, which is making things even better financially. I want to offer advice to women who may be struggling with temptation, as I have. My suggestion is simple. Resist it, the thrill is never worth the cost. If you find it hard to control yourself, seek professional help. From my own experience, the short-term high is not worth the long-term loss of love, respect, and trust. I'm a 32-year-old man married to Lily. We've been together for the last 2 years, dating for 2 years before getting married. Lately, things haven't been going well between us. The trouble began 2 months ago when my wife suggested we open up our marriage to add some excitement. I was surprised by her suggestion, never imagining she'd bring it up. I want to clarify that I'm not trying to control her, but given our history, it's hard for me to believe she's genuinely interested in this. Let's face it, open marriages are risky and usually hurt one or both partners. I made it clear to her that I'm not comfortable with the idea. It's not that I'm against trying new things or spicing up our married life, but I want those things to stay within the boundaries of a committed, closed marriage with no third party involved. She was disappointed, as it's rare for me to deny her requests. I love her deeply and usually go along with what she wants, even if it means compromising. Although she didn't say much after our conversation, I could tell she wasn't happy about it. I wanted to understand her reasoning, so I started questioning my abilities in the bedroom. I wanted to talk it out with her, but she remained silent. Lily is a consultant with a demanding work schedule, often juggling different time zones, which throws off her work-life balance. While my own job is also busy, it doesn't require me to work across time zones, making things a bit easier for me. Because of her hectic schedule, I wasn't able to discuss my concerns with her earlier. I blamed myself for impulsively rejecting her suggestion of an open marriage without asking for more details beforehand. I felt awful about it. Nearly 2 weeks later, I got home early one evening and decided to make her favorite meal for dinner, hoping to make things right. She appreciated the gesture, and we spent some quality time together. I saw it as the perfect opportunity to bring up the open marriage topic again. When I did, she immediately got frustrated, accusing me of playing mind games. I wasn't trying to manipulate her. I just wanted to understand her perspective. I was upset by her accusations and asked her directly if I wasn't meeting her needs. That's when she opened up. She told me about the interns in her office, fresh out of college, living what seemed to be carefree lives, partying and hooking up whenever they could. Their stories had planted the seed for her idea of an open marriage. She confessed to feeling a fear of missing out when she listened to their adventures. I listened and tried to understand her point of view. It's natural for people to be influenced by what seems exciting or new, especially when it contrasts with their own life experiences. I explained to her that I wasn't comfortable with the idea because I value our relationship so much. Our bond means everything to me. Before I met her, I also lived a wild life in my 20s, chasing the same thrills. But I learned that excitement fades, leaving an emptiness behind. When I met Lily, everything changed. She was the one I wanted to build a future with, to grow old together and have a family. I shared all of this with her, suggesting that if she was genuinely interested in an open marriage, maybe we should reconsider the idea. But she immediately denied it, though she seemed to understand where I was coming from. For a few days, everything seemed fine, but after about a week, her behavior took a drastic shift. She became cold and distant, attributing it to stress from work. Lately, she's been acting out more, throwing tantrums over minor issues and mocking me as being outdated. When I asked her about it, she said I was too stubborn in sticking to my beliefs and not keeping up with trends. I was confused. What did she mean by following trends? I stay updated with fashion, music, and the latest web series. I asked if my refusal to consider an open marriage upset her, and she simply nodded, leaving me even more confused. At the same time, her work schedule has become even busier. Initially, she had a few late nights each month, but now she's coming home late almost every other day, sometimes even after dawn. When I confronted her, she explained that she was aiming for a promotion and needed to prove herself. While I admire her ambition, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Honestly, I didn't want to entertain negative thoughts or jump to conclusions, but the situation was starting to feel too off. Yesterday, something happened that made me feel the need to share my thoughts and seek advice. I got home earlier than usual and decided to prepare Lily's favorite lasagna for dinner. Even though she had late-night plans, I wanted to surprise her. I messaged her, and she replied that she would be home late, possibly after midnight, which was a bit of a letdown. So, I spent the next hour playing video games, feeling hungry but waiting for her. After a while, I decided to pick her up from the office, something I had never done before unless we had plans. I thought it would be a nice surprise, so I rushed over to her office building. I waited outside for 30 to 45 minutes, but there was still no sign of Lily. By 12:30 a.m., I started to worry. I went upstairs to ask the receptionist if she was still around, and I was told that she had already left. I felt foolish and regretted the decision to surprise her. I drove home, but when I arrived, she wasn't there either. At this point, I was concerned about her well-being, not about cheating. I couldn't shake the worry for her safety, but cheating didn't cross my mind. It was too late to contact any of Lily's coworkers. She'd only been at the company for 6 months, and I didn't have their contact information. I was unsure about what to do. Exhausted and anxious, I ended up falling asleep, still uncertain about where Lily was. When I woke up on the couch at the first light of dawn, I rushed to my room. On impulse, I found Lily comfortably asleep in bed. I quietly tucked her in and then went back to sleep myself. When morning came, she was already up and getting ready for work. I asked her when she had gotten home the previous night, and she told me it was around 3 a.m., explaining it was because of a long day at work and a meeting with an Asian client. Curious, I asked when she had left the office, and she casually said it was around 2:30 a.m., which shocked me. Her response raised some doubts. Either the receptionist had given me incorrect information about Lily not being at the office at 12:30 a.m., or Lily was lying about being there until 2:30 a.m. Still feeling disoriented from the stress of the previous night, I chose not to press the issue further. Later that afternoon, Lily called me and asked if I had been to her office. The receptionist had told her about my visit around midnight. I was surprised that the receptionist was aware of my visit, but I explained why I had gone to her office. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, and then Lily clarified that she had actually left her office earlier in the day for a meeting at her client's U.S. office in another part of the city. This, she said, explained why she hadn't been at her office when I checked. Her explanation didn't fully make sense to me, though. She went on to say that her client was an Asian company with a U.S. office, where she participated in Zoom calls with employees in the Asian time zone. While this is a common practice, it still left me feeling confused and uncertain. I'm at a loss and unsure of what to do next. Should I wait for things to settle down, or should I confront Lily again with my growing doubts? I've already confronted her multiple times, and I'm not sure how much more I can take. Any advice or suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Update: I have some shocking news to share, and I'm venting here, so please bear with me. Over the past few weeks, I've been trying different ways to get access to Lily's emails and her phone's password, but she keeps everything very private. I tried to come up with ideas to uncover the truth, but I didn't succeed. For the past 2 weeks, Lily continued to come home late from work, and we've been giving each other the cold shoulder, having only brief and transactional conversations. 2 days ago, Lily was on the bed, talking to her mom about her ongoing kidney problems. Her mom's recent blood tests hadn't been good, and she was updating Lily on her condition. While Lily was on the phone with her mom, I took her unlocked phone to check in on her mom's health. As I listened to Lily talk about her mom's tests and medications, something clicked in my head. I glanced at her phone screen, which had chat notifications. I casually walked into the room while still on the phone, went into the washroom, and locked the door. I put the phone on speaker, pretending to listen to her mom, while I read the messages through the notifications. What I saw made my stomach drop. The messages showed that Lily was supposed to meet someone that day for a fun ride. I opened her social media messages, and to my horror, I found out she was having an affair. She had been involved with several of her younger, inexperienced colleagues. I couldn't believe what I was reading. After a couple of minutes, Lily realized what I had done and started knocking on the bathroom door, demanding her phone back. I didn't have time to read all the conversations, but I quickly scanned her gallery for concrete proof. What I found was devastating. Explicit photos of my beautiful wife in compromising positions with her coworkers. I immediately emailed those pictures to myself and deleted the history on her phone. She's been cheating on me with multiple colleagues, and I feel sick to my stomach. Meanwhile, Lily was still knocking on the door, asking for her phone. I couldn't stand to hear her nagging voice anymore. I unlocked the door, handed her the phone, and locked myself in the washroom again. At first, I wanted to rush out and confront Lily right away, but instead, I took a step back, calmed myself, and let the anger subside. The chat notifications on her phone provided details about the location and the time she was supposed to meet someone that day. After leaving the washroom, I grabbed my car keys and drove to the location. As I was leaving the house, I faintly heard her call my name, but I didn't turn back. At the hotel, I chose the darkest table in the lobby, not to make a scene but to quietly observe her comfort level as she prepared to meet her lover. She was supposed to be there by 5 p.m., and I arrived early at 3 o'clock. By 5 o'clock, I had drunk several shots, hoping to confront her at home initially, but I was too numb and unprepared for that kind of confrontation. By 6 o'clock, she still hadn't shown up, and I thought she might have sensed my presence and changed locations. Regardless, I was too drunk and drained to think clearly, so I stayed and continued drinking. Around 7 o'clock, I finally saw her. My world seemed to collapse in that moment. My vision blurred, and after 4 hours of drinking, I could barely remember what happened next. Acting on autopilot, I got up, staggered to the reception area where she was checking in, tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Good luck with your fun ride." I might have said more, but that's the gist of it. She tried to explain herself, holding my hand, but I don't recall her exact words. I do remember pulling my arm away, shrugging her off, and storming out of the hotel. I hailed a cab to my friend's place and passed out at his door. The next thing I knew, I was waking up on his couch yesterday afternoon. I had slept for 16 hours straight, all day Sunday. My friend, Jackson, made me lunch and fresh lemonade, and I poured out everything to him. He advised me to freeze our joint accounts, change all passwords, and get an STD check immediately. While the advice was practical, my mind was in a different place. Money and privacy checks felt trivial compared to the betrayal I was experiencing. I managed to turn on my dead phone, and when the screen lit up, I was overwhelmed by the notifications. 100 missed calls, 50 voicemails, and countless pleading messages. I ignored them all. After a few minutes, her calls and messages started flooding in again. I blocked her on every platform, too disgusted to read a single word she sent. Today is Monday, and I called in sick for the next few days. I don't know how to deal with all of this. I've been drinking heavily, and the urge to run away from it all is strong. I'm lost and unsure of what to do next. My friend is helping me find a lawyer, and that's where I'm at for now. Update. I took Jackson's advice and secured our shared accounts, changed passwords for sensitive information, and thankfully, my STD test results came back negative. Jackson helped me find a lawyer, and I shared the pictures from Lily's phone with him. I'm temporarily staying with Jackson until the divorce is finalized, which actually works out since he needed a roommate. Meanwhile, Lily has been trying to reach me, begging for a reconciliation and to start over. She even contacted Jackson, asking him to help repair our marriage. According to her, the hookups were meaningless, and she was only exploring her desires and trying to feel attractive again. I'm still unsure about this whole Gen Z concept of desirability, and I'm not sure if it's genuine or just an excuse for her actions. A few days after my last update, I sent Jackson to my house with the keys to collect my things, hoping Lily would be at work. But Jackson found her at home, where she broke down in front of him and asked for his help. Jackson was smart enough to tell her I was staying in a hotel to avoid any unnecessary drama. Lily told Jackson that she had quit her job, revealing that it all started when interns at her office began flirting with her. They made her feel desired and beautiful again, leading her to try new experiences, including illicit ones. At first, it was just a one-time thing, but she became hooked on the thrill. The interns didn't make enough money and started relying on Lily to pay for things, and she eventually realized they were taking advantage of her financially. By then, though, she was already deep into that lifestyle. When Jackson asked why she didn't confess earlier, Lily claimed she had tried to talk to me about opening up our marriage because she felt guilty. But my refusal to entertain the idea stopped her from confessing. I'm left confused. Why ask for an open marriage after already cheating? Lily is resisting signing the divorce papers and is now blaming me for motivating her one-night stands. But she hasn't provided any evidence to back up her claims. Now, she's seeking alimony, citing mental distress caused by the divorce. If anyone deserves compensation, it's me. I've had to endure the betrayal and emotional turmoil caused by her actions. Later that month, Lily's sister, Sophie, reached out to me, begging for a reconciliation. She explained that Lily was going through a tough time, suffering from severe depression due to the interns tarnishing her reputation at the office. They had spread compromising pictures of Lily to senior employees, making her the office joke. This gossip spread beyond the company, damaging her chances of getting any future job referrals. I reminded Sophie that Lily chose to leave our stable life for the thrill of an affair, and now she had to face the consequences. As for me, I'm moving forward with my life. I've kept my drinking in check, focused on working out, eating healthily, and staying busy at work. The divorce proceedings are ongoing, though delayed due to Lily's resistance. My lawyer assures me it will wrap up soon.